Can anybody sing? Getting the best out of the voice you have. Chapter 1. Nature and Nurture. Different strokes for different folks. The most effective leaders are those who cater to the emotional and creative differences in others, and by doing so, encourage the development of independence and strength. The role of a teacher is to help you become what you want to become, but they can't do it for you. So every singer must take responsibility for their own voice and learn to become self-sufficient. As with any skill, the action of singing needs to be repeated many times before it becomes an integrated awareness, but when it does, the student will reap the benefits of vocal independence. Chapter 2. Life's a Pitch. The Genesis of Sound. When learning the skill of singing, it's easy to forget that we've probably uttered every one of the sounds we're trying to make somewhere, sometime in our daily lives. Long before we learn how to speak, we're already sensing how our parents and role models are using language to communicate with one another. As we begin to formulate and articulate sentences, our voices are undergoing a subtle process of modification or suppression in alignment with our family and cultural sensibilities. Therefore, the voices we're using are often compromised versions of the voices we're born with. So if we're to bring them back to their natural state, we firstly have to understand how they've been influenced while we're growing up. Chapter 3. Breathing. The ins and outs of it. One common misconception among singers is that the more air you inhale, the more sound you'll be able to create. Unfortunately, it's not quite as simple as this, as the amount of air you need for a phrase will vary depending on the pitch and level of difficulty of the phrase you're singing. Breathing is an automatic reflex action, so it's not necessary to consciously manipulate it to stay alive. But for a singer who needs to be able to control their breathing, conscious awareness of the way the air is being utilized becomes crucial. Chapter 4. It Takes All Kinds. The Rainbow Gathering. Embracing our own individuality is not always easy and is only possible if we can believe that we all have something unique to offer. All of us are casualties of some form of negativity and bias, but it's easy to lose sight of the fact that sexist, racist, classist and ageist views are exactly that, just perceptions and attitudes, but not in any way the truth. Take a close look at those you consider to be charismatic and successful, and you'll see that they're not superficial stereotypes, but instead authentic individuals who passionately follow the vision they have for themselves. Chapter 5. The X Factor. You either have it or you don't. Have you ever wondered exactly what it is about someone that attracts you to them? When an individual knows who they are, what they believe, and what it is they want to achieve in life, they emit an energy or light that's charismatic and powerful. This energy or light is commonly labelled the X Factor, but unfortunately, along with it comes the general belief that you either have it or you don't. It's true that some individuals are more in touch with their creative impulses than others, but this doesn't mean that the rest of us don't have the potential to become the same. Perhaps it only highlights the fact that we're all at different stages of development and haven't yet come into our own. Chapter 6. The Crocodile Pit. An Imperfect Instrument. To be human is to be imperfect, and therefore we need to understand that when we're learning to sing, we are in fact learning to negotiate an instrument that has numerous pitfalls and sensitivities. A sound vibration is inherently perfect until it passes through the human instrument. So instead of making statements like, "I've got no range, my voice is breathy, I sing out of tune, my support doesn't work, I can't project my voice, or there's a big break between my registers," try replacing them with, "Why do I appear to have a limited range? What's contributing to the airiness in my tonal quality? How do I maintain my pitch throughout a phrase? And what do I need to do to blend the registers more effectively?" Chapter 7. Build on the Rock. Foundations make the house. There are many schools of thought on how to achieve great singing, but although most will agree on what a wonderful vocal result is, the methodologies used to achieve them are diverse and arguable. What is undeniable, however, is that certain principles allow certain results. The classical principles of singing create a kind of foundational scaffolding, which gives the singer a reliable platform on which to play. But this can only be useful if the teacher understands its relationship to styles other than operatic, and helps the singer understand its benefits and relevance to the genres he or she is exploring. Classical training need not ostracize or intimidate, but should be seen as a necessary enhancement and stabilizer for the physical and intellectual requirements of a solid and reliable vocal technique. Chapter 8: The Grand Canyon, Crossing in Style. Opera, classical, musical theatre, pop, jazz and rock are all unique and separate musical languages, and although fundamental principles will apply to every one of them, the demands of each style will organise these principles into any number of creative outcomes. Opera demands melodrama, technical precision, stamina, and the ability to project the voice acoustically, whereas contemporary styles will ask for the peeling back, bending, or breaking of these rules, placing less emphasis on vocal perfection and more on organic communication. This in turn informs the overall vocal posture and automatically modifies the language of the style. Inhabiting different styles isn't easy, as these musical languages have to be experienced to be understood, and many of us are extremely limited when it comes to stylistic exposure. Chapter 9: The Language Barrier, Lost in Translation. Although a powerful tool, language can never be the experience it's trying to describe, and therefore it's vital that the concept behind the action of singing becomes a tangible physical reality to every singer. Singing is a little like operating in the dark, as the vocal mechanism can't be seen, and therefore the language used to describe it can at best only be analytical and conceptual. We all interpret and respond to words differently, so what might be effective for one student won't necessarily work for another. There are many things in life that language has a hard time describing, and more often than not, the words we use have several meanings or interpretations. Therefore, it's important to keep an eye on how a student is processing the information being given and to modify or change it accordingly. Chapter 10: Child's Play, Out of the Mouths of Babes. As long as a teacher has realistic expectations of a young voice, there's no danger of causing damage. But it must be understood that children process information differently to adults, and therefore the way in which they're taught must accommodate this. Today, children are pushed harder than ever before to perform or measure up in what's fast becoming an adult world, which makes the need to keep things positive, light, and fun all the more important. So what should we do to allow children the maximum opportunity to develop musically? The best thing a teacher or parent can offer is a safe environment and the freedom to creatively explore on their own terms, in their own time. Chapter 11: Everybody Says Don't. Much Ado About Nothing. From the moment a singer discovers they have a voice worth training, drama and tension begin. The human body is also a musical instrument, so illness can and will directly or indirectly affect the voice, making small irritations like coughs, colds and allergies seem like a matter of life and death. Your environment and health are the two things that can be controlled to one degree or another, but what can't be controlled is the unknown. Stress is a direct result of fear. Could be, should be, might be, and what if are all questions about a future that hasn't yet happened, which makes them impossible to resolve. The only thing you can do is prepare for life and its circumstances to the best of your ability. The rest is out of your control. Chapter 12: You and Me Against the World. The universe is friendly. Unless you've been lucky enough to grow up in an empowering environment, or are one of the few who thrive on being the centre of attention, you will have experienced some form of performance anxiety or stage fright. Whether mild or chronic, fear of failure and rejection tends to govern our lives, and many of us carry a false sense of worthlessness because of it. In our formative years, positive reinforcement is essential for the development of healthy boundaries and self-esteem, but feedback that's served up negatively can create a void that often takes a lifetime to resolve. That being said, in spite of conditioning, trauma, and where we are in our journey, I know with absolute certainty that the paralysing symptoms of fear can be transcended if their true illusory nature can be understood. Chapter 13: Me, Myself, and I. Who's running this show? We all have internal voices that feed us messages about ourselves, And these voices will either be empowering or disempowering, depending on whether the conversation is positive or negative. The voice that runs an incessant commentary on your failings and shortcomings is the negative feedback of the lower self or ego. But the voice that speaks rationally and positively is that of the higher self or intuition. How often has one part of you wanted to do something one way, only to be contradicted by another part of you wanting to do it another? By moving our awareness inward, we can begin to make the unconscious parts of us conscious, so that eventually they can all begin to work together. Chapter 14. Rhythm and Ritual. Beating your own drum. We're all conditioned to believe that all opportunity lies in saying yes to things, but in fact, other opportunities arise when we say no. It's very important to understand that saying no to something doesn't have to be a judgment of the thing you're saying no to. It's merely a choice you're making based on what you feel and what you need at that particular time. This, of course, will take a great deal of practice, as many people will try to make you feel guilty about your apparent selfish behaviour, and you may well begin to undermine the validity of your decisions. Despite this, it's essential that you stay strong and follow what it is you truly feel. Chapter 15. The Head to the Heart. The Longest Journey. People who love what they do have no difficulty working from the heart, as inspiration and celebration are glorious byproducts of doing the things we're passionate about. No journey can be taken successfully if you're defeated before you begin, so it's important to understand that everything starts as a small seed of potential. This potential may or may not be realised, but if you're realistic in your aspirations and goals, there's no reason that you should be anything less than successful. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that success lies in worldwide acclaim, but this is subjective and very often short-lived. On the other hand, working towards a life full of the things you're passionate about will foster ongoing discovery and a sense of real achievement.